Um, oh, thank you. Well, that jumps right to some of our housekeeping. We are going to be recording this. This is how we're going to be spending our time together. After my welcome message, Steph is going to take us through why design critiques matter now more than ever, what's happening in the market, and why teams are turning to critiques to sharpen their thinking and improve their user experiences. You'll hear directly from our designers as they walk us through the top 5 learnings this year. And then we're going to move into a Q&A so that we can have a nice dynamic conversation. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. As I mentioned, this is being recorded. Please do feel free to drop a question or any reflections in the chat. I am going to be keeping an eye on them. We're going to save some of them for the end. I do ask you to please follow our LinkedIn page, which I will also be sharing in the chat, to make it easy for you to connect with us and follow our team, to learn more about what we do, how we offer up design critiques, and what are the unique POVs that our team has. A quick word on who OCAD UCO is. We are the corporate innovation studio inside OCAD University. We were created because companies kept coming to university and asking for help to make sense of design thinking, futures thinking, and systems thinking. I like to say that we help you see around the corners that you can build with more confidence. Our goal is to translate these methods into practical industry-focused solutions so that your team can be prepared for the very many years ahead of us. Let's do a little bit of an introduction to what we're going to be taking a look at today. This session is for anyone shaping your product experience. Today, you'll get a snapshot of the patterns that surfaced across a full year of critiques. These are insights drawn from hundreds of hours spent with almost 50 companies across every vertical. So there's a lot of great learning we have had here. At the center of this work is our Design Critique Lab, which is a structured outside-in review that delivers practical, honest feedback fast. Every company leaves with prioritized improvements that can help boost user satisfaction and growth, and make for better human experiences. Is that today's session will help move in this direction. And if you'd like to explore how a critique could help support your work, reach out to me and I'm very happy to help start a conversation. And with that, let's get started. I'm going to hand things over to Stephanie Ribello. Stephanie is our account director of design and foresight at OCAD UCO, and she's going to walk us through why design critiques matter right now and introduce the designers joining us today. Stephanie, I'm very happy to hand things over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Hey, everybody, and welcome. And thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have this conversation. We've put together some really rich learnings that we have seen emerge from the past year. And we're doing this conversation now because it feels quite timely. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about, where are these learnings going and what are they going to do for us in 2026? I think we're at that time in our season where we're starting to slow down. We're starting to do some long-term planning. So we felt like these learnings would really have a really important moment for everyone and for our clients and community. I'm not sure if anyone's been keeping up. I've been paying attention to the news with the latest on the federal budget. So I've been following a few articles as we've been preparing for this panel, because there's been a lot of conversation about the investments being made specifically in the Canadian economy and Canadian defense. But outside of defense, the ripple effect of those investments on the startup and innovation ecosystem. So Forbes had recently called this Canada's accidental innovation strategy, which is innovation in itself. This is a really great article written by Abdullah Snowbar with the DMZ. And what he does is reflect on, this massive spending, about 5% of the GDP by 2035 to build up our domestic capacity. But the article reflects that this isn't just for tanks, for planes, it really is for dual use technologies. Everything from AI, data platforms, clean tech. These are technologies that serve both national interests, but commercial markets as well. So this is a massive injection of cash into the Canadian tech system. But it's coming with a few strings. The capital only flows to companies that can prove their IP is secure, their product is robust, and with that, that their user experience is intuitive enough to be deployed in a high stakes environment. So while exciting, are Canadian organizations, startups, scale ups ready for this? And this is really the reality that we built design critique around. And we've been doing this program for about 7 years. And we realized that companies were understanding the value of a high class user experience, but they didn't have a dedicated person to think about this day in and day out. And we've now tested this model with about 150 companies. In 2025, this program is the ultimate de-risking and planning tool. And after a full year, here are some of the patterns that we've noticed across our clients. Similar challenges, design approaches, investment gaps. And what we're hoping is that you take this time, if there's something that speaks to you, if there's something you're also dealing with, not only do you have a chance to learn from our designers, but you can reach out to us and understand this program a little bit more. So to help me unpack these stories, I'm just going to introduce our two designers. We have Karen. Karen, give us a little wave. Karen's a design technologist, a UX UI interaction designer, an educator, and a digital artist. She has about 25 years of experience in the media industry. We're so lucky to have her. Her clients include marketing agencies, NGOs, research centers, entertainment producers, everything from Media Monks, Rethink, the United Nations, the Ontario Science Centre. Outside of Karen also runs her own extended reality boutique. Karen, just to introduce yourself, I'm just curious. Say hello and tell us what's been your favorite sector or a design challenge, your favorite design challenge in 2025.
Yeah, my favorite one, honestly, is when we start thinking about spatial design or alternative input methods beyond the mouse and keyboard. That's
Yeah.
something that is in my wheelhouse and where I think we can go way further.
I'm
That's it.
excited to get some clients around that. All right, let's head over to our other panelist. This is Jeff. Jeff is an accomplished strategy leader, researcher who specializes in crafting data-informed, insight-driven strategies for branded experiences and campaigns. He excels at translating complex research into actionable direction, working closely with creative firms to bring successful UX and UI solutions to life. His recent portfolio includes partnerships with brands like Meta, Google, WhatsApp, Lululemon, Adidas. Jeff, give us a wave. And as a quick warm up, same question to you. Is there a favorite sector, a company, or a design challenge that you worked on in 2025?
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. That's a great question. I don't know, like I really am enjoying because I'm recently a freelancer now. So I've been really enjoying just what comes my way. Um, I think I'll copy Karen a little bit. I'm like really interested in like things that happen IRL, like in the real world. So
Mm,
spatial design, and then thinking about how we can translate that back to digital. I think that's like really rich and really exciting. So that's kind of where my head is at, but a close second would be I'm working with a lot of fashion brands. I've been really enjoying that lately. It's been a fun challenge.
you say. Very cool. Same question to you folks who is listening and watching. Favorite design challenge, thing that you've been working on in 2025, what's keeping you up at night? Place it in the chat. Let us know. And we're going to get started with talking about our top 5 learnings. So, like I said, we've run a lot of critiques, many of them, and we're starting to see some of the same patterns. And what we're going to do is ask our designers to share a bit of a story about why this learning, give us a couple of examples for why and what they're seeing. And then I'm going to recap with some maybe actionable tactics that either have come from our reports, come from the learning, things that you can take with you as you kind of continue to work. So as I go through these learnings, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. It can be directly for Jeff, directly for Karen, or just your own question for the whole panel, and we'll get to them at the very end. Because our slides have just kind of erased there, I'm just going to share them myself. Oh, there we are. They're coming back. I'll start with our first learning. So in the past year, we have been reviewing a lot of dashboards. And at the end of this year, as I was talking to our designers, it's becoming a bit of a dirty word. And designers are constantly identifying the dashboard as a bit of a make or break point for user adoption. So I'm going to turn my first question over, or my first learning over to you, Karen. What are some of the issues that you're seeing with dashboards, and what would you like to start seeing?
Okay, so I think a lot of people agree. Dashboards also extends to tables and lists, endless tables, tables in tables, lists within lists, all that fun stuff. So most people feel really overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. So you want people to immediately feel home there and see what they can get out of it, get some real, immediate KPIs in there. What often happens as well, what I see is that it becomes this big collection of functions and features, makes it overcomplicated, and the navigation also starts suffering from that. So one word for that, feature creep. Not everything has to be at the first level immediately. What happens too is that people make these systems so that people can put in a lot of data, compare data, collect it, archive it, and whatnot. Data in a very broad sense of the word. So what often happens is that people miss an example. We call it the empty state problem. People don't see any templates or demo data that can explain to them or demonstrate to them the full potential of the software or the product. So they don't see widgets to help you configure. Those things are very helpful and often lacking. So this gets this sort of fear of the empty screen, have to start from scratch, and that we know is always a lot of time and work, which a lot of people don't have. They think that this product is going to help them to save time most of the time. So a lot of the times, as I said before, there is no distinction really about the critical data, the things that I really need to know first, and then the secondary, even tertiary data that can be more embedded in the data, in the dashboard, sorry, for people that really need it.
And so I really appreciate that. I think the dashboard as a dumping ground is something we're seeing a lot of, and I remember you saying that. I'm wondering if there's an example, whether from the ERP software you just worked on or the real estate software that you just worked on. Is there an example of, a challenge that an organization had and a recommendation that you gave them to upgrade or support kind of better dashboard use or optimizing dashboard use?
Yes, so the blank screen, it's in most of them. I have software to the order of procedures, where if you have some templates in there, that's going to help people to start off. Some companies have had something like that, but then I have other ones where that was missing. I had one, but not their new users, for example. I'm thinking about a farm software that we did, Système Forager. I'll come back on them because they also do good things. And then, of course, you want to make sure that when you do make widgets, that they actually do something that your users need or want. and that it helps them to do something quickly. Um, the uh, feature creep in the real estate software that I just finished the audit. It's really it's very overwhelming. Also, another software which is more for the food sector, the same thing. Um, One was overwhelming because they've put, I have the impression, everything all at once in one page and then in different variations on the other screen. So it was very confusing of where I need to find particular information. And the other one was more of a lot of complicated graphs where I think people need a PhD to be able to figure out what the hell that, graph was actually explaining. So, know your users, of course, and show the complex things to people that we call power users. They'll figure it out. And they'll get there. While so really distinguish between different kinds of user personas to help with all this organizing of information and the hierarchy, information hierarchy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'll just quickly recap that for everybody based on Karen's story, some of the learnings that she's pulled out. Never show a new user a blank screen. Okay. If they haven't entered data yet, pre-populate it with a dashboard, with demo mode, a getting started checklist, or even sample data to make it clearer on how to use the dashboard. Audit every widget. If a graph doesn't tell the user what action to take right now, consider cutting it. Finally, combat feature creep with a bit of that progressive disclosure. And I think to Karen's point, your power users will know how to use those more complex features and drill down to it when they need to. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm going to just keep us moving for time because we have 5 and so many to do. So let's go to learning number 2. And this one is around optimizing for impact. And clients, frequently come to us seeking advice on a revised UX or design because they want to grow their user base. The number one request, right? We see it in all our applications. They know that good UX is a part of the solution, but Jeff, something that you've shared with me is that clients are sometimes solving for the wrong problem. So tell me a little bit about what you're noticing. And let's switch to the next slide, please.
Yeah, it's so funny, Karen, that you mentioned all of that. I've noticed the exact same thing. And I love that you also advocate for progressive disclosure. That's like a big one for me. It's just like just to help out like just give people stuff that's actionable and stuff they can do something about, and like that's it. That's all they need. Um, but yeah, so I think um this is very much tied to Karen's point where it's like people need to know what to do next. And I think it also has to do with shorter attention spans. So one of the things that like optimizing for impact that we've noticed, or yeah, that relates to optimizing for impact is that like oftentimes people have to go like products make people go through long onboarding processes or providing a lot of information before like they can start to use the product. And one of the like easy wins that we found across, or at least that I found across a number of different audits that we've done, like these design reviews, is that just if you can optimize for getting the person to feel the value of your product or platform as rapidly as possible, you win. Like it's such like a cliche, but Google's such a great example of that, where you like go on google.com and it's just a search bar. Like that's it. Um, you don't have to sign up. You don't have to give them your email address in order to get search results. You don't have to like provide any sort of information. They don't give you a tutorial. They just throw you in and you all like just see the magic of the platform. I think whenever we like think about products, there's like a certain little bit of magic that happens within every product that we make. That's just a combination of like, really good design solving a problem and then solving it in like a hyper efficient way using design and technology. So I think the sooner you can get people to that magic of your product, they feel it and they're hooked for life. Well, like hooked for a pretty long time. An example of this is this is such an old one, but I think it's so salient. The CEO of Peloton said that, their big thing was always getting people into the stores and they had bikes in the stores. So when you get on the bike, you start to feel like you start to work out, you start to feel good because you're working out, you start to feel the endorphins and you start to see the feedback from the machine. And then it's like that's all you need to buy it. Like that feeling is all you need. So I think for me, it's, how can we just rapidly get people to seeing the value of the product as soon as possible?
Yeah, and I remember you giving me a photography example, and I think that's the digital one or the digital example. Do you mind sharing that?
For
The
sure.
photography website?
Yeah, so we were working with a client. It was like a pretty interesting idea. They had it was basically like a CMS platform, like a Squarespace or a Wix or something like that. But it was um, targeted towards photographers, so amateur photographers or hobby photographers or anybody that just wanted to either share a portfolio or get paid for photography, wedding photography, etc. And the reason that this was helpful is they found that a lot of people that were interested in photography didn't really need robust websites other than like, showing off their portfolio. And that a lot of other websites, it was difficult to get to a few other functionalities that photographers needed, like like access a calendar to book me for your wedding, or see my rates, or pay me money to buy my prints. Um, so theirs was basically like, hey, we're just going to do portfolio and those functionality, and that's it. And one of like the few easy wins we had working with them, and they were really smart that they saw this, was let's just get people into building their website immediately. Like, let's have them hit the website. Let's have them like get into the creative process of like looking at their beautiful pictures and dreaming about their business, and then get their email address after they put a little bit of work in, or like then collect their data, then ask them for money after they start to like build things and they're more invested in the platform. So for us, in terms of stickiness and user acquisition, it was just such an easy win. And it was just like, okay, let's just front load the website building, let people see it and feel the magic of it. There's also a really cool AI component as well, because not all photographers are excellent writers. It helped you out with that. So that was like just such a dead easy win for us. Was just like, let's just take what you have and just strip away any sort of preamble.
I find that so interesting. And also considering our next learning, like how those two kind of work together, because we're going to talk about onboarding next. But I just want to recap for everybody before we move on. I think based on what Jeff has said, the example that he gave, both I like the physical like Peloton example, then also what that looks like in a digital space. Our recap. With strong customer research practices, you can get like what is that one magic feature that is going to deliver value? Can you put it up front? And don't make users click through to get you there, to get brought to the reason that they came to your product in the first place. Um, Audit your headlines and labels. Are you describing the tool or the result? And can you actually lead with the result? And I think that's a really important one, especially as we have a lot of engineering-led product teams, right? That are going for here's what we can do versus here's what the impact is. And then I took this from your notes, Jeff, because I thought it was a really great line that was, time to magic ratio. And just this idea of like decrease the time that it takes to get to the magic, right? Give them the impact and how quickly can a user get to the core action. And I thought that was a really, I just took a metaphor out of your notes. I thought it was
Hey,
good. Let's head on to the
one
next
more thing. I'm sorry.
learning. And this,
I got to dwell on
yeah,
this for one quick second. The label thing I think is so smart, leading with the result. And I would say that like 99% of the audits that I do involves just going through
mm,
like, hey, like what does this
good
do for the
framing.
And I remember once I was working on another product, a Peloton competitor called Tonal, where it's like it's on the wall and you like pull weights down and it's digital weight. And we found actually the opposite through user testing is that the more people learned about the technology, the more questions they had and the more hesitations they had. Because the company was just like, let's lead with technology because we've got NASA technology is so groundbreaking that we can like do this digital weight resistance. And then when people read about it, they were like, wait a second, is it going to come off my wall and crush me? How is it doing this? Do I have to be concerned with it? What if the software goes down? And then like their proclivity to buy just plummeted. So we found that it was just like show the magic of the device, show somebody working out in their home with the weights. That's it.
I appreciate that. And it also speaks to Karen's first point around the
Yeah,
simplicity of
totally.
messaging. And then the same thing with a dashboard. All right, I think we're going to see a small trend as we go to our next one, which this is the learning that's around onboarding. Onboarding is your first, as well as sometimes, unfortunately, your last impression. We've seen many incredible products with complex value, but the front door is locked. We've seen this pattern emerge over the past year where companies assume that the user logs in, job's done, right? And in reality, this is the point or the place where the user is most vulnerable to churn. So Karen, you've mentioned you've seen this happen, and then you've also, alluded to earlier that there's been some star players in our critiques in the past year that have been doing this really well. So tell us a little bit about, the good, but then also like what is the star players actually doing?
Yes, so often it's one of my discovery questions basically is like, okay, how does this work? How do people understand how to use your software, your product? So a lot of the times the answer that I get is like, oh, we book a demo session with them of 20 minutes when it's that's a good time. It can be even longer or repetitive demo sessions, like every month or something. First of all, it's a lot of effort as a company to handle that. Not that I mean, personal help is, of course, very valuable, and you need to, keep that with your big clients, of course. But, it's unsustainable in the long run when you start to scale. So, um, of course, sometimes, the bad thing is not even having anything on their website to help users to have a help section or documentation or a frequently asked questions section. For me, those are like the minimum things that you want. So that's, again, an example that I have from a product that is already active. So I'm not talking about products that are only in prototype phase or are not live. I'm talking about products that are live that don't have any documentation available for the people using their software, and they already make people pay for it. For me, this is kind of mind-boggling. And then the good one is Mon Système Fourager. So this is a specialty software for farmers in Quebec and also for agronomists, so the scientists working with the farmers. And they really did, they had the frequently asked questions. Yes, they also have personal meetings. The owner would have YouTube videos online as well with tips. They have their documentation is there, well ordered. They have a step-by-step explanation with screenshots, and then they have Storylane, a software that's used by some other companies, Storylane walkthroughs, where you basically have a sort of video where you see the pointer going and you see pop-ups with the explanations of what that particular function does. So they really went, this is what I want to see. This is really caring for your users. And inside the application as well, you had access to that documentation. So I don't need to go to their website. From within the mobile application, I can access that information. So that is somebody who really did an effort there.
Awesome. So let's head to the next slide. I'm just going to recap, and then I'm curious, Jeff, if you also have some onboarding tips. So I think based on what Karen said, right? Build that contextual help. Stop relying on PDFs. Use things like tooltips, hover states, and interactive wizards. I loved hearing that example to really help, right? Create a really strong onboarding experience. Design a specific quick start path for your first login. This is something that came from a lot of our other reports as well, right? Don't show them the whole platform, show them the one path to get their first win, right? Get them hooked, get them in, get them working, which kind of connects to your point, Jeff. And then that example of role-based entrances. So if you have different users, give them different welcomes. And really make sure that they are learning about, what they need and what they're working on based on their user profile. Jeff, I'm wondering, based on your own experience, if there's any other onboarding tips that you've noticed or you want to add to this list.
No, I mean for me the one that really stands out is the quick start path. For me, like even as like, like I'm a relatively bright guy and when I go onto a lot of these platforms trying to figure them out, I'm like what do I do? Like what do I do next? And to Karen's point, it's like just give people like something to, like everybody should always have like a very clear thing to do next. If they're an advanced user, they can just ignore it and freestyle and do whatever they want. But you should always be giving people like a clear path to getting to that first win. For me, that one was like most resonant. Yeah, I think like hopefully I don't want to offend anybody, but like, relying on PDFs, hopefully that's table stakes by now that we're not doing that. But you see it sometimes. And I think the idea of like having it work alongside the user by like surfacing tips and everything like that is really the right way to do it. No, I think that's all super smart.
Amazing. Great. Let's go to learning number four. The hot topic, as always. Every company in our cohort these days are talking or want to talk about AI, right? But looking at the critiques, and I've had a chance to kind of review all of our different clients, it seems like many people are struggling with the how to deploy it. Is it a marketing term? Is it a product feature? And we've been thinking about this a lot at Co. We've been really trying to expand our clients' thinking of beyond AI as a tech stack and more towards human-centered AI and finding that really meaningful product market fit. So this is going to be opened up to both of you, Karen and Jeff, because I know you're both working on this in different ways. Where is AI being really effectively integrated and used? And what traps are you noticing that companies are falling into? Karen, why don't we start with you?
Okay, so my general idea is that it should assist people, augment people. So, and a lot of the times, the users could pinpoint you to the best places where to start with implementing AI. And some of the things, of course, the obvious places where I see people or companies promising to implement AI because it's often a little bit further on the roadmap and often haven't been able to test it, their AI implementation. So, but one thing, of course, is reports and predictive analysis. So the data viz, all that fun stuff. That's something where AI can be good. Anything analysis, summarizing, all that stuff. And the other thing I've seen, of course, or plans is to work with more intelligent, I'll call it, chatbots. So customer service that ties in with the help documentation. Of course, to make a good chatbot that takes skill too and work. We know enough about the crazy chatbots that all want us to immediately pick up the phone or type in "want to talk with a human now," so they want to avoid those. But anyway, so those are the places, predictive analysis reports and chatbots, where I see it on the roadmap. For most companies, nobody is using at the moment AI, for example, to design their product. I mean, UX UI part of it.
Yeah, that's a surefire way to get some generic,
Yeah.
kind of templated UX UI, which is not helpful in this context. Over to you, Jeff. Effective uses, traps you're seeing people fall into.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll echo Karen. Like, I think one of the big things I've been noticing and having to negotiate with, both with working with OCAD clients as well as my own practice, is people seeing AI as an end rather than a means. And I think AI should be thought of as a means to an end and not the end itself. As Karen said, it should be helping people, it should make things easier. And I think we also need to be asking ourselves, like, is conversational interfaces actually easier than clicking a button? Like, a lot of the times it's not. Like, sometimes you just want to click a button and, like, not have to really go through all of that stuff. So, I think like really interrogating where you're using it is a really good idea. Like I recently worked with Notion AI on an activation here in New York at this book fair I do. And they were really smart and they were just like, we're at a book fair, so we're just going to get out of the way and do an IRL library. We're just going to make a library for people and just facilitate people finding inspiration and creativity. And I was like, that's the smartest thing an AI company could do in that context is just like stand back and facilitate people being creatives. Other times too, like I'm working on a project right now with a bank and they want to come up with an AI chatbot and I've been kind of thrown in as a strategist on this and one of the big questions that's coming up is like, wait a second, like how is this going to help people if we can't give them financial advice? Because you can't really give financial advice as an AI chatbot. So one of the big things the team is running into is like, how do we make this thing useful? And again, I was brought in much later on this, I did not get us to this point. But now we're like kind of having to go back and be like, oh yeah, like this needs to actually help people and do something for them other than like spitting out a funny image of them or like a cool
Mhm.
picture of what their retirement might look like. Um, so I think and I think too, the other thing as well is like just to continue this rant, is that people are getting more skeptical about AI. I think even more skeptical than they were before. And it's like before, I think people would like enjoy being like, oh yeah, I'm going to use this and get a funny picture, or I'm going to get like a funny output. And I think that novelty is rapidly wearing thin as it relates to marketing efforts. So I think there needs to be just like good old-fashioned utility involved. And there's plenty of ways to do that with AI too, which is great.
I just, before this call, saw a post that was about the anti-AI marketing push. Because it's happening, right? The skepticism is real. Let's just flip to the next slide and I'll just maybe summarize quickly based on what I heard from you both. Thank you so much. And I feel like I'm actually going to start with the second one because I feel like you both kind of articulated this really clearly. Like it has to have a strong use case. And that means getting back to, the first principles of design thinking. Does this make your user's task easier, clearer, faster? Does it really suit or meet a real need? And that building trust, to go to our first one, it's going to be increasingly even more necessary. We're losing the sparkle because we are skeptical of if this is really going to support us. So unbox the black box, focus on transparency, and that'll be really important as you're designing your AI use case, specifically within the product experience. Thank you both. I really appreciate both those stories. Let's head to our final one. And this one is about closing the implementation gap. And this is something that I'm actually going to kick off because I've had the pleasure of just working with all of our designers and kind of seeing what they're saying. Because it's a bit of the elephant in the room. We've talked about dashboards, we've talked about value, onboarding AI, but who is going to do the build, right? Who's going to actually implement the recommendations that our designers are putting forward? These are really thoughtful ideas, but something that has come up to our attention through these last year of critiques is only 21% of our clients felt that they had the internal resources to meaningfully implement. And they were really struggling to say, okay, like we understand and we see the value. What's next? How can we move forward? And there were two very distinct talent gaps that companies needed to invest in and that our designers were articulating. So I'm going to summarize what I heard from all our designers, then I'll let Karen and Jeff maybe add to that. The first is that designer is a really big umbrella. And if we have designers on the call, I'm sure you feel that. We need to stop looking for unicorns and get a bit more specific on the problems that we're trying to solve. We've had clients that didn't just need a designer, they needed a specific UX writer because their language was confusing. And it was confusing to their different users, not their power users, but perhaps an entry level or new user. We've had clients that didn't need a graphic designer, they actually needed a UX researcher to help them articulate needs, pains, and gains. So the lesson here is we need to be specific on the kind of design talent that is going to help us solve for some of the challenges that we're seeing in these reports. The second one was to invest in design infrastructure, not just the screens. We're seeing kind of inconsistent product looks because we are having, a designer come in, do one screen, then a different designer coming in and doing another. And we're just building on top of each other versus having a cohesive design system where we're all building from, or a base that we're all building from. Some of the recommendations that we've seen kind of pushed through were, investing in a design system or component library, because while it costs upfront, it speeds up development by about 50% later on, because your developers have a component to pull from that's already been meaningfully thought through and connected to the user experience. So those are some of the recommendations when we were looking at investment gaps across all of our clients and some of the needs and skills that they were looking to fill. Karen, Jeff, what are you telling founders who have a really great roadmap but no car to drive it forward? What are you telling them about investments in design capacities? Maybe Jeff, will throw this one to you first.
Sure, yeah. I think the thing that resonated and yeah, the thing that resonated with me most about what you mentioned, Steph, was the design system thing. Like that's something that I'm continually mentioning to folks. I have like slides that I just find myself like altering, like they're all like templates at this point because they go in so many decks. But I think like the one hack that I'll share, and this is, I worked on Shopify's design system Polaris back in the day and all of that fun stuff. Design systems are meant to scale. And yes, it's an investment up front, but it doesn't have to be a massive investment up front. What you should be doing if you're like really, really stuck is just build your design system for like and iterate on it as you go. And then just start to chip away at it and start to define it as you move through things. So then that way that like even if it's just you building it, when you bring on that second designer, you have something to show them that allows them to follow the things that to you are obvious, but to them not so obvious. So like as corny as it sounds, like just start today. Just start like documenting how stuff should look and just let it evolve from there.
Appreciate that. And I can hear and I can see where people have been like, we're still saying it. Design components or seeing the same slide, the same recommendation year over year because it's so important. Before I turn it over to Karen, I just want to remind everyone on the call, we're going to be moving into questions soon and a quick recap. So feel free to put your questions into the chat, either for Karen or for Jeff or for both of them, and we'll get their insights and their ideas afterwards. But then over to you, Karen. What are some of the skills? What are some of the investments that you're asking founders to make after these critiques?
Yeah, so the design system or component library is important. And then, of course, don't start mixing them. I've had companies that, they hired a designer at some point and then that person left and then they had another one. And then they bring their own component libraries and then they start mixing it up. So now the icons are not the same while they're actually doing the same. So that kind of confusion you want to avoid, of course. So yeah, stick with it. And then, yeah, sometimes you have to make choices in life and stick with it, right? So the other thing, of course, is, a lot of the times what I see is that it are companies that only work with engineers or developers that don't really have a lot of design background. And I'm just meaning like color and, you know, uh, I can't, of course, in this design critiques, I can't do rebrands, but I feel the itch, right, often when I see it. One of the things I was thinking on our case is that, while they start deploying it, that they could have like people coming in at certain critical points to help them, or set a base, like we say, design system, which includes, not only icons, but the typography also and the colors and so on, to really, and then check from time to time, come back in and check if it's being used properly or in a good way. So yeah, the
Thank you.
occasional drop in, I would say. So continuous support at critical moments.
I'll just add
Appreciate
one
that,
more.
Jeff. Do you want to say anything? Yeah, go for it.
I do. One more thing I'll add to that is, oftentimes, especially if you're a developer, just get a fresh set of eyes on it. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be anybody, just to say like, hey, check this out. Does this make sense to you? And you'll probably get some really great feedback there. That's like a pretty quick and easy way to, make sure you're on the right track. And the other thing too, just as like a general rule of thumb, like less is always more. Like two fonts, choose a really simple color layout. Green means good, red means bad, yellow means like pay attention to this thing. And like just leave it at that if you're unsure. Because the other thing I find too is people like to get freaky with fonts and font sizes and they get fancy. And I've learned from experience that like you just gotta chill on that sometimes and just like less is more. Always. So if it's ever a question, just
Yeah,
do less.
I agree to take the most basic design rules and just apply those.
Yeah.
You know, one interface with one primary color or one color that stands out, like the basic stuff, and then you're good, and it's gonna look good, and it's gonna already get you a long way instead of trying to do more complicated stuff or looking at the fancy websites that are mostly marketing websites and not utility websites, like the gradients and all that stuff. To do that properly for a product that is mostly needs to be used for complex use cases, it's very complicated to get that right. So that's also something that comes through my mind.
We can feel you both like leaning in to be like, we have more, but we'll hold back. Thank you both for your thoughts and your notes and the two kind of recap points here. I think stand based on everything you've said. You know, really like determine what your issues are if you're going to hire for design talent. Is it structural? Is it visual? Is it content related? And bring them in and hire in and invest into the talent to have that specific skill come and help you solve the problem. This can typically, some of the recommendations we see in a critique like ours can be fixed in about a 3-month sprint, right? If designed effectively. And then, of course, to both of Karen and Jeff's point, invest in a UI kit. It's $500 for a basic one, perhaps, but really just hire and focus on getting that baseline set up, even if it feels like a lot of upfront work. It'll pay dividends later on. Okay, so we're rounding in right on time. Woo, good job. Let's just pause to see if there are any questions. Feel free to place them in the chat. And then I'll just do a quick run through and a reminder of all 5 of our learnings. The first, dashboards do not need to be a dirty word. We're asking for simplicity, kind of give us the sample data to work with and work through so that people can get into it sooner rather than later and reduce the complexity. Your power users will do their own thing and get into it a lot faster. Give the simple access first. Grow your user base by optimizing for impact, which is really kind of closely related, to really ensure that you're giving people the right language of what they'll immediately close the gap from time to magic. Can they get impact almost immediately when they open up your product, when they walk into a store? Your onboarding is your first and last impression, right? So spend the time to make that experience as useful and as intuitive as possible. Approach AI deployment with transparency and customer value at the forefront. No AI gimmicks or AI theater. It's an easy way as skepticism and mistrust start to kind of come in and increase. And then finally, strategically close the implementation gap. And if you want to know how to do that, a critique like ours is very supportive of that. Any questions? Okay, I see one in the chat. Thank you. What are some early considerations that you might think about when looking to implement AI into a system? So kind of those early um, considerations. Jeff, do you want to kick us off? And then I'll turn it over to you, Karen.
Putting me on the spot. Sorry, give me a moment. Some early considerations that we think about looking to implement AI into a system. I think just like really asking yourself, and thanks for the question. That's a really great question. This might not be the best answer, but I think just asking yourself and like really interrogating, like, what is AI going to do that nothing else can do? Or what is AI going to help us do faster and more rapidly than like that is just impossible without it? And then implementing it for that, like just to do that and don't make a big deal of it. Like I think that just keeping it super utilitarian is a good idea. Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
I appreciate that. Karen, would you add anything?
Yeah, I'm gonna, I guess, repeat something I said earlier is to ask your users actually where they think AI could help them. Because, when I'm using I always find I know when I think I'm gonna want to use it, something that is repetitive, kind of grunt work, that you really like feel like you're wasting your time. Oh, that might be a good area where AI might be useful because let's not forget that AI is not 100% foolproof. That's a very good foolproof. AI can hallucinate, can still make mistakes and so on, and that is a real issue that is not going to be solved in the next 2 weeks. So your users know best where they think AI could help them. That doesn't mean that there is an AI system or approach that is going to be help them with all of the things that they think it can help them. But at least I think that is a good start. And then they also feel implicated and will be also more motivated to actually make use of it. We see it popping up in all our softwares, and it's true that people are starting to push back a little bit more, and also seeing that it's not always that useful neither. So,
I'll add one more thing to that. I think Karen, like ask your users. I think that's so smart. And the other thing too is just start small. Start small, and if they find value in it, expand a little bit. But like I think the one thing that I find too is people get worked up about it and want it to like do everything. Just start like in a small little part and see if it works, and if it does, expand from there.
Thank you. I appreciate the gradual approach, the user-centered approach, um, both really important as people are rushing and seeing it more as a marketing feature than truly user focused. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our webinar for today and some of the learnings that we have kind of collected over a year's worth of critiques. And I say a year, but you know what? We're seeing these repeatedly show up in our critiques. But 5 for now, and I'm sure more to come. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you're looking for a clear, faster path to improving your product experience, it's exactly where our Design Critique Lab comes in. We really love to help teams get that outside opinion, find the friction points, point out the missed signals, and articulate the opportunities for them to unlock adoption and stronger releases. If there was something today that made you say, like, I want to look at that dashboard, or can we review that onboarding experience, please reach out. I'm happy to walk you through kind of what that experience looks like, what it means to work with our team, and talk about how we could support your roadmap into 2026. Huge thank you to Karen and to Jeff for your insights today. We really appreciate learning from you always. And thank you everybody for tuning in. There's a QR code on the screen for your quick connect if you'd like to. And have a great rest of your day and the rest of your year. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for your time, everybody.
thanks for being here.